This is the AMX M454. It is a Tier 10 French collector heavy, a vehicle that features great mobility, gun depression, frontal armor, and a very solid turret. When you pair all these together, it's a super flexible Tier 10 heavy. And this is a Tier 8 French premium medium, the Lorraine 50T, a vehicle which features no armor, but fantastic mobility and a really solid gun. What do these two vehicles have in common? Well, if we take the hull of a Lorraine 50T and put the turret of an AMX M4 on it, you get the Lorraine 50T, which is the vehicle that we are going to be talking about in today's video, taking a look at its statistics and everything it has going for it. So let's start off by fully equipping the vehicle. There you go. And let's take a look. So DPM-wise, it has 2,734 if you are running rammer, and 2,543 if you're running calibrated shells. Personally, I had a tricky time picking another vehicle to go up against this tank in comparison, because there's really no heavy that's comparable. I was going to put a Conqueror up because of the low alpha damage, but the Conqueror doesn't have nearly the mobility this tank features. So for right now, we're just going to be looking at this vehicle stats. I'm going to let you know what I personally think about it. So let's see. It's got 2,500 DPM and 2,700, so it's got really good DPM. Something else that you can't see here is that the vehicle features tungsten shells. So while its alpha damage is quite low, that's actually better because tungsten is going to allow you to pump out more high damage shots rather than one shell or two shells. So overall, really, really good in the damage department. It also has very good heat pen, 320 base. That means if you're running Cali, it's going to be 352. So if you're running calibrated, you'll have enough pen to cut through any 100 turret the majority of the time. It's actually quite solid. Looking at the caliber, it is a 120mm, so even though it does have slightly less damage per shot than the average 120, you will still be able to cut through 39mm plates, which is quite nice. Look at that shell velocity, 1300. That is insanely good. Obviously, dipping into heat is going to lower your shell velocity though, so do keep that in mind. The HE is also very dangerous, 515 damage per shot with 66 mils of pen. That means if you do get the rear or sides of any lightly armored vehicles, you're going to be able to tear them apart with 3,500 DPM and 3,700 if you're running rammer. So let's take a look at this vehicle's gun handling. Aiming time of 1.5 seconds is really solid, and its dispersion of 0.326 is also quite good. However, its on-movement dispersion is pretty mediocre, especially when you realize we are running V-stabs on this tank. So yeah, not a very accurate gun on move. You are going to have to be careful, but if you're not moving the vehicle and you're just turning the turret, it's actually super accurate at 0.1. So yeah, interesting. Thankfully, it aims in pretty fast and it does have good dispersion, but yeah, definitely not going to be good at shooting on the move. 10 degrees of gun depression, going to make it super duper flexible on any ridgeline you drive it, and this is where the greatness of the vehicle shows, and that is the mobility. Or so one would think, because while it does have a good top speed of 43, and it's got an average reverse at 15, its power to weight really isn't anything impressive. You see, on hard terrain, it's pretty good. 16 is a solid power to weight that'll allow you to accelerate probably within 5 or so seconds to your top speed. But on medium terrain, a power to weight of 12.3 is actually quite bad. That's because the terrain resistances are quite poor on this vehicle. Yeah, it's really unfortunate, to be honest. I thought that this tank was going to be super duper mobile, but it turns out it really isn't. You want to avoid soft terrain at all times. Soft terrain consists of water or mud. Yeah, this is not a fast vehicle in any type of soft terrain. We can see the vehicle does have very good traverse speed though. Again, I'm not sure how the traverse speed is going to be affected on medium soft terrain, but judging that the effective horsepower to ton is affected by about 30%, I would expect the traverse speed to also be 30% slower when you're turning the vehicle on sand or anything in that category, so do keep that in mind. Its camouflage values are absolutely awful. 7% and 4%, wow, really bad. So because of that, you are going to have to keep that in mind. Normal heavies are sitting upwards of about 10 to 12% camo, and a very good camo vehicle would be something like a Chieftain Mark 6, if we can find that somewhere here. AMX M4, Mouse, VK, 2 and 5, there you go. We found the Chieftain. We can see the Chieftain Mark 6 camo is 20% and 15%, so yeah, not a very good vehicle in the camouflage department. HP, it's got quite a bit, 2208 80. That's actually a lot of hit points for a tier 9, so that is one thing that is quite nice. And speaking of the armor department, well, we can take a look at how the vehicle's armor is right now. And it's actually quite interesting. We can see that the hull is awful. As I said, it's based off of a Lorraine 50T on the hull. So yeah, you're only sitting at about 160 millimeters, but thankfully it's not weak enough that you're going to be penned by high explosive unless it's Hesh. So that is the nice thing. Side armor, it is very bad. 67 mils, yeah, any HE is really going to cut through that. We almost have enough pen with a Type 68 to HE it, but any 150s are going to cut through your sides, and especially the rear as well. The back of the turret, thankfully it's not the worst armor, but it's definitely not anything good. But you will notice there's one part of the vehicle that is really solid, and that is the turret. This vehicle's turret armor is ridiculously strong. Even loading 340 mils, actually no, that's 374 mils because we have Callion of heat pen, you can see that this turret is super strong. Any tier 8s aiming at this vehicle's turret, like we can pull out a Chisei or something, any tier 8s aiming at this vehicle's turret, completely red. You're not going to have any chance. And this is the highest heat pen heavy that you'll go up against apart from a 113, and it still has a very hard time cutting through this vehicle while hull down. So if you are able to only show the turret, you're going to be doing very well in this tank. In fact, we can pull out a calculator here. I don't know why I've got a 50 on it, but yeah, we can pull up the calculator. And if you're able to use the vehicle in a position like this, that's where Lorraine's going to be great. Pair that with the fact that it's got really good DPM, solid mobility, it's going to be a dangerous tank. And yeah, I am actually quite excited for this vehicle. I'm friends with somebody who's played it quite a bit. He's enjoyed it, and he said the tank feels great. So I am excited to see its capabilities. But for the average player, look at how bad that hull is. Even while using 10 degrees of gun depression, it's only upwards of about 200 mils with AP. So you're not going to be getting bounces in this tank. If you over-angle the hull, if you show the track wheel at all, your armor is going to be buttered through like no tomorrow. So I'm excited for this vehicle. It seems like a skill-based tank that is really only going to do well, as I said, in the hands of a skilled player. Now, it does have a hatch. You can see it on the roof, but that hatch is only a weak spot while using it on flat ground. If you're using that gun depression, this vehicle has no hatch whatsoever, which is actually rather interesting, and I think it is a good balancing factor because, let's be honest, if this tank had a hatch and it had this bad of a hull, I'd be really disappointed. I'm glad that Wargaming has given it a really strong armor profile, at least while using the gun depression, because it's going to take a lot of effort to hide that massive hull to only show the turret. Personally, I think the tank looks really solid. Yes, it is going to be a very high skill-based vehicle, but I'm glad that Wargaming is still adding tanks into the game that require skill to do well in. It's very boring when they just add a T-77 or a Barask and everybody gets the new highest win rate in the tank. So I'm excited for the tank. I think it'll be really good, but as I said, buyer beware. It's probably only going to be good for the top % of players that understand how to use it properly. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.